We are the Orcs, and we have a plan.
To watch all of Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica.
And drink beer. Hello, friend, and welcome to Borgcast Galactica 6.12 with Anne-Marie and Peter. Hello!
Hello.
Hello.
We have a little bit of a...
Previously on Battlestar Galactica.
For our coverage of Daybreak, we heard from Daria. Thank you, yes, Anne-Marie. I get it that maybe not everyone would be in a hurry to lay down a hustling, bustling city after a few years in flying metal boxes, and maybe some really do want to go living off the land in this would-be Eden planet. But can they say that of everyone?
No.
Is no one dependent on medication? No one needing dialysis?
Yeah.
No one has mobility issues that don't lend themselves to wandering across primal Africanada? I've just worked out what that is.
Africanada, nice.
No one's pregnant and doesn't want to give birth in a mud hut? No one? I'm going to choose to believe that a bunch of people off-screen said, screw that noise, and scavenged a bunch of mod comms from the fleet to make their own settlement, or even grabbed themselves one of the remaining ships before Anders took them into the sun. Hey, Doc Cottle, what are you going to do if this planet doesn't grow tobacco?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very true.
Thanks,
yes.
Daria.
Thank you.
So we move on to the plan.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, she flew a radar, learned how to control it from the inside. Nobody taught her how. Kara Thrace plucked that knowledge from the stream.
I don't care if she plucked puppies from God's ass. You're worse than the frackin' Sixes.
She has a destiny, something beyond us. I'm starting to understand why God loved humankind before he changed his mind.
No. If you get a chance, you kill her. But right now, you got other problems.
Yes, Ron Moore wasn't involved in this for contractual reasons, because he was involved in another studio at this point. Jane Espenson, who's written it, as one of the series writers and producers and director. Edward James Olmos, he's not exactly a stranger to the show, to be fair.
No, but mostly it doesn't tell you anything. What does it do? Well, it goes back a bit further in time, so you see a bit more in the past. Ellen's still flirting, this time with Cavill. In a bar, you get a little bit more about Baltar and Six, but you don't really learn anything.
Well, you learn who she was talking to.
Yeah, like you didn't already know.
Well, I suppose you possibly could have guessed, but it was so long ago you probably wouldn't have thought of it, actually.
So basically, what you have is the Cavills are behind all of this. They're manipulating everybody. It was all supposed to be a total annihilation and genocide. Mm-hmm. And then
that was the plan.
That was the plan. Then when that didn't work, they tried other solutions. The one manipulates Boomer. The one manipulates one of the Simons who commits suicide. He doesn't listen to anybody. One of the other ones starts to learn and take on board that maybe this idea doesn't work. Mostly you don't learn anything. Mostly it's flashbacks or comments on other stuff going on. I don't understand why I watch this. Tell me something really important I just missed out.
Okay, well, from your half anyway, yes, there's an answer to who Caprica 6 was talking to, which isn't massively exciting,
I did say the one was manipulating everybody.
Yeah, we do get some nice beauty shots of spaceships and the attack on Earth. I love the fact that we get to see the base stars revolve.
No, that was good. The transforming thing was good to make them aerodynamic. Okay, yeah.
There's a shot of Lucy Lawless that was just an old one they had lying around, because obviously she's not in this, along with a lot of other people, really. Mostly it's just stuff in flashbacks. We see a lot more of the colonies, including Canceron, which sounds like a fun place to hang out.
Canceron.
And on. And on. And on.
And Canceron.
We get reminded of how young everybody looked at the beginning of the series.
But why does that matter? Why do we need any of that?
Yeah, well, we find out who the mysterious stranger was that rescued Ellen.
Yeah, and he's manipulating her as well. I mean, I'm just, the pyramid ground looks like a children's playground, the pyramid training camp. I mean, there's all sorts of things I could talk about, but I don't see why any of them matter and what any of them bring. I'm just saying to you what matters out of anything in my half.
Very little. Very little in my half either. I mean, that's the bottom line. I like the group meeting. with Durrell's comic turn.
Yeah, I mean, there's some comic turns in this. If you have watched it, there are some moments to like. I mean, also as well, the other thing is that it's all a bit. One of the things I don't like is that you have the final five saying things like, "Oh, there must be another way out of here," or "All happened before, all happened again," quoting Cylon-y stuff. That doesn't quite fit with the fact that actually they genuinely don't know they're Cylons, if you see what I mean, until much, much later on.
Mm-hmm.
As if they found themselves, all of this happened before and all this has happened again, particularly going around saying that.
Well, it's Ellen who says it. I mean, she's not on the point of death because she survives, but yeah, it's interesting that she just come out with that.
And it's just, to me, that's like... And then you've got Cavill meeting all the other Cylons and then, like, not saying anything. Because the thing is, with the final five, I never thought there were multiple copies.
Mm-hmm,
I thought there was one of each.
Yeah.
So it's so contrived, having the Cavills at the end meeting so many of them and seeing them all there.
Yes, they all gather.
Yeah,
in the
because
last
they
scene.
happen to be on the stairs. But if it's just that's really contrived. I don't like that at all. I also don't like the fact that he's kind of dropping hints that to the fore that as to who Anders is, when actually he's not supposed to like anybody knowing who the final five are. So his conversation with the four doesn't make any sense at all in that context at that point in the timeline.
I don't think he drops any particular hints.
Because he says, of Anders, he says, he's beneath her and all the rest of it. He's saying all that sort of stuff about Anders.
Again, that's not going to mean anything if you don't know that he's one of the final five.
Yeah, but would that character really sail that close to the wind? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. He's the one who actually makes a journey, whereas the other one stays the same.
Yeah. I like the idea that there can be difference, that there was at least one Cavill. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That learned.
Mm-hmm.
Because that makes a bit more sense of Ellen's attitude to John.
Yeah.
If there is one that could learn.
Mm-hmm.
So you can take that from it. Was it needed? I'm not sure. But something you can take from it. But, I mean, other than that, you just reference a whole load of stuff and you go, oh, look, and then there's this completely new character who's the Simon's wife. So it shows that one of the Simons was also...
Not completely new, because actually she was in the miniseries. We see her Lee taking her off the raptor and she asks about her husband.
Okay.
It was just a happy coincidence that they could get that actor back again. So they said, oh, well, we'll make something out of this character. I mean, it's all very rough and ready because basically there were very few... there was only the one writer left over who wasn't attached to other projects. Some of the actors were available, some of them weren't. So, for instance, it was originally going to be Deanna instead of the second six, who's referred to as being the tough six.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a punk. That was originally going to be Deanna, but Lucy Lawless wasn't available, so...
I just, you've got some good lines, like,
I love all the stuff about Durrell not, having a different colour jacket. And
Yeah.
he's not really up to the task, it has
No,
to be said.
he isn't. But you don't really gain anything. I think what little is gained from watching this is in your half, not mine, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
I really, you get to see stuff about the colonies, but by the time you're watching this, having watched it all the way through the original Battlestar, it's like you've moved on from that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Oh yes, I mean,
It would have if they wanted to do this, they should have done this at the time. Because if they'd done it, they could have even done it in season 2. It would have been early enough in.
But they couldn't because we didn't know who the final five were.
Yeah, because it shows that they didn't really know what they were writing, doesn't it? They hadn't really got a plan at all.
No, they hadn't.
No.
But it's kind of reflected in this because number one's plan just has to keep changing, and as the others let him down, he has to think again. And
yeah, but he sees it as letting them down. Actually, they're learning, and he isn't.
You've got the boy.
Yeah, which
who turns out to be called John, which is obviously interesting because that's number one's name.
Yeah, but it's just a kid who hangs around because Cavill's cover is as a priest.
Rather bizarrely, he's dressed in the same clothes that Dean Stockwell wore in a 1947 movie, Boy with the Green Hair. They were going to have him with green hair as well, but the studio nixed that idea.
Yeah.
We do get explained how the Boomer stuff worked out, with her being a sleeper agent. So basically, any time she's given the wooden elephant...
It's like Garibaldi in Babylon 5 when it comes up on the screen and it goes all funny. The wooden elephant is the equivalent.
Yeah. So
but we didn't need that. We didn't need to know that. We knew she was a sleeper agent. We knew she was being manipulated. The only thing that makes any difference to anything that you learn in my half is that Cavill was pulling all of the strings.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Or at least trying to, anyway.
Yeah. But that's it. I don't need to talk about the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more, I think, of substance in yours because that's where you get to see the one Cavill have his journey in yours.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think your half has more merit than mine. But I took notes, but I don't see the point in reading them out. They're all piss boring.
We find out how Shelley escaped arrest in my half.
No, yeah, again, in your half.
Mm-hmm.
That was because that bugged me.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it bugged me. And it's because they swapped her for someone else, pulled one in, and said someone else...
The punk six then runs on ahead.
With a wig on.
Wig on, yes. Then Juan and Shelley go through the toilets, and we get to see a wang. Wow, as well as the usual topless women we actually get to see. Apparently they had to strive quite hard to leave that wang in. We find out why Sharon didn't ultimately kill the old man.
No, I like, again, it's worth anything, I think, apart from, as I said, that it's Cavill pulling the strings, anything worth learning from the plan is in your half. Because you do get the chief sitting back going, she was a better shot than that. She was trapped. Do you know what I mean? With Boomer, she was going.
Mm-hmm.
She was trapped, and that was her only way out.
I'm sure somebody said back in the day when we covered that, why don't they aim for the head?
Yeah.
Now we find out why.
Now we find out why. But then also as well, the stuff with Simon who dies. I guess in a way it helps. It shows that potentially in every model there is, even the ones that seem really callous, there is the potential for growth.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it's really built on more in your episode when she's sitting back and she's saying, he was a Cylon, and obviously she's really upset. But then that's when the chief says, yeah, but maybe there was someone giving orders. They say there was someone giving orders and he didn't want to do it. So again, the real learning about Simon, if anything, and how he's different and how humans and Cylons perhaps have more in common than you think, that's in your episode. The consequences of that are in your half.
I like the business with the Simon and the Cavill on Caprica, where they're overhearing what's happening with Kara and Anders.
But again, that's where he's saying, "Oh, he's beneath her" or whatever, and the way that Cavill is saying that implies that he expects the Four to understand. But
but the way the Fours interpret it is, sex positions basically.
Yeah.
So that is quite funny. I enjoyed
it. It did make me smile. And that Simon is a callous Simon.
Yes, he doesn't understand why Cavill hasn't called in the cavalry, wipe them all out, yeah.
I like the way that Cavill pretends to be a survivor, because they've tipped all the bodies out of the truck. And he sort of just quickly lies down and then pretends. And
then it looks like the Cavill on Galactica is perhaps changing and learning to like somebody in terms of the boy, but then he ends up stabbing him in the back.
Yeah. That's brave, but yeah.
That was the most. That felt like the most Battlestar Galactica moment of the episode, because it was the one point where you went, ooh.
Yeah. And that Cavill hasn't learned.
Yeah.
But then you get the dialogue in your episode with them, like towards the end, and he's like, "I'm going to get you boxed because you'll think he's going to infect the others."
Yeah.
So most of the Cavills are hardline fanatics, but even the Cavill model
has some variations. Yeah.
Yes, and
them holding hands. That was kind of sweet.
Yeah.
And then we get the final words, which we've already heard, obviously, in the previous episode of Cavill about wanting to be a machine. And there are a couple of references to that through the episode with him. Anders says he's struggling to sleep, and Cavill says, "Yes, I know how you feel," because of course he'd stopped sleeping.
Yeah.
And then when Boomer's talking about having to feel that she's turning herself into a Centurion in order to kill the old man, and Cavill's like, "Yes, that's what it's all about. We're trying to be proper machines here."
Yeah.
So basically, it answers a few insignificant questions. It doesn't answer, annoyingly, how number one knows who the final five are. He's the one silent model that knew. How did he know that? Was it just priority because he's number one? he's aware of who his parents are in a way that the other Cylons aren't.
I thought, it's not in this, but I thought it was in, not necessarily Daybreak, maybe in one of the episodes before, he tampered with shit so only he knew. In the same way that he killed one of them, didn't he?
Uh-huh.
So I thought he meddled with shit.
Oh, right. I hadn't picked up on that, but that might be the case.
But that could be an inference rather than something said outright.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, my feeling is, if there had the stuff that's in my half, which I know it's got the reveal of Cavill in it, but most of it is fleshing out life on the colonies before. If that had been shown in season 1 or 2, it might have had an impact on me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now it doesn't really. It's interesting, the idea that Cavill's behind everything. It does fit with what comes later. I think all the good stuff is in your half, if I'm honest.
There's very little good stuff at all, though.
Yeah, there's not much to this, really. It's not
bad. It's just not particularly justifying its existence, basically. That's the problem. It's answering a few questions that you weren't particularly puzzled about in the first place. The effects are great, as usual. The music's good. Performances are great. But it's all a bit meh, basically.
Yeah, I mean, my favourite line is, "I don't care if she pulled puppies from God's arse."
Yeah, I mean, the Cavill stuff is the best stuff, because he gets some great lines, and his frustration that he's having to rewrite his plan every 5 minutes, but that doesn't really sustain a 120-minute episode or whatever it is.
I mean, to be honest, there's not even 45 minutes of material in
here. You could just about stretch it out to 40, but it's twice that long, and it doesn't really justify it.
So I haven't talked about it in depth, because what would be the fucking point?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's find out what other people thought. We've heard from Sampo and Yona.
And they write, "Like most people apparently, I have also never seen this. So unseen Galactica, that's a treat. Or something different at least. We watched it. Then it ended." Then Yona asked, "What do we write about that?" And there was silence. I guess that says a lot. I mean, it wasn't offensive or anything. I wouldn't even go so far as to say it was bad. But it felt like about only 2/3 new material. And it answered a lot of questions that didn't need answering. Mm-hmm. And if anyone watches this without watching the series, they won't understand a goddamn thing about it. We follow the exploits of Cylons both in the fleet and on Caprica. The movie does its best to try and tie most of the Cylon episodes of the first 2 seasons together. And while back then it all seemed part of a bigger plan, it turns out they were making it up as they go along. Could this be some kind of self-aware meta-commentary on the show itself? Most likely not. We get an explanation as to how the Six disappeared after trying to feign Baltar. Apparently they changed her into the S&M 6 with a wig, who was just like a fast walker. That was strange. One mystery I really would have liked to know more about was the Olympic carrier in the 33-minute interval, but maybe there really are no satisfactory explanations, so it's better left a mystery. Best part of the movie is that we see a lot of Cavill, because he's such a great character to hate, although him stabbing the boy was a bit dark even for Galactica. We also found it funny that the only people who turned up to Cavill's prayer circle were other Cylons, which is a bit odd, taking it into account how easily Baltar gained a religious following in season 4. Must be his hair or whatever it was that the S&M 6 said to Cavill.
I got the impression, because it said, contact Brother Cavill, and then there was like sort of just numbers underneath, which presumably only would have meant anything to the Cylons.
Okay.
So they would have found themselves in the right place as a result of that.
So everybody else was texting and getting it was number undeliverable?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. And Sampo and Yona say, "It was fun seeing all the characters in the old footage looking so young and innocent." Yes, especially Gator. Aaron Douglas is able to act like a much nicer Tyrrell compared to the nut job he was at the end of season 4. Also, this apparently had a higher rating than the series, as indicated by the bare boobies spinning around in the background in a few scenes. A very American way of using an R rating. So, we watched it. It exists. Let's watch Blood and Chrome next. That's kind of it, really. Yeah, very much my feeling on this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Which other poor sods watched this?
I heard from Andrew.
I think that the plan was a bit of a mixed success. There's some interesting stuff in it, but there's an awful lot of filler to get through before you get there. And it's not that any of it was badly produced or badly acted or badly put together or anything like that. Just a lot of it just wasn't very interesting. Anders and his crew on Caprica, that was just dull. There was no getting away from that. It was just dull. The John, the number one on Galactica, coordinating all this other Cylon activities. There was a deep cut there with the elephant figurine that he uses to sort of bring out Boomer's dormant personality. If you remember back to season 2, when Boomer resurrects and she's on Caprica, she's in her apartment and there are elephant figurines on the table when Caprica 6 comes to visit. That was a nice little thing that showed that they're paying attention, but Galactica John coordinating Leoben and Shelley Godfrey and Boomer, it just didn't really feel like much. It was just, yeah, and not much of an added dimension there. Where there was an added dimension, I thought that worked a lot better. And I think the overall theme of the added dimension that we got in the plan was love. There's a Simon in the fleet who's fallen in love and has a family. That was interesting. That developed the Simon model in a way that he hadn't been developed in before. Usually he's quite an unfeeling Cylon. Usually he's the Cylon who's performing medical procedures on unwilling women and children. So for him to have a family consisting of a woman and a child who he cares for very much is an interesting inversion of what we've come to expect from the Simon character. Did make me wonder though, by killing himself, he's pretty much leaving his family undefended if Galactica John decides he wants to kill them himself out of spite, which we know he's apt to do because spite turns out to be an important component on his part in the attack on the colonies. Way back from the start of BSG, the story has been the Cylon War was their war of liberation. They were slaves, they rebelled, they fought a war, and then they went away, and then they came back and destroyed the colonies out of revenge and to make sure that they would never be slaves of humans again. And that's the understanding that you have for a very long time. And for the other humanoid Cylons, that might, to the end of the show, be as far as it goes. But for John, the first humanoid Cylon, he wanted humans wiped out because of spite, because he felt that the final 5 loved humans more than they loved him. And that was his plan. That was the plan for him. Wipe out all humans to punish the final 5 for loving them more than him. And it doesn't work. Not only are all humans not killed, but the ones who are left, turns out the final 5 still love them. Which is what Caprica John discovers. Anders loves his crew. Anders loves Starbuck. And not only that, not only does Anders still love humans, love them even more maybe because there are so few of them left now, but he doesn't forgive the Cylons for what they did. The plan has completely backfired. It's made things even worse, and that's the realization that Caprica John has, and why he regards the attack on the colonies as a mistake. And there's no thought for actual human beings in there. It's worth remarking on. It's still John thinking about John. It's not wiping out humanity was a mistake because killing is wrong. It's wiping out humanity was a mistake because it made it certain that the final 5 were never going to love John the way that he really wanted them to. He made it worse. He made it so that the final 5 would hate and revile Cylons and him for what they did forever. So on the one hand, you've got character continuity for him, John, because he's still at the center of his world. It's still all about him. But on the other hand, you get a different dimension also, a development of his character that we hadn't seen before, an understanding that we hadn't had before. So yeah, I might like to have seen a space battle between the Cylons and the colonial fleet, but hey-ho. Thanks for listening, take care, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
It would have just been repeating old space battles, wouldn't it, if we had seen one, so meh.
Yeah, but this sounds like, yet more first child syndrome, doesn't it? That the writers had to kill all the other kids or, do something with them so that only Hera was special. It sounds as though that's how they've now written John, that his motivation was that nobody else is allowed to be loved, only him, because he's the first and therefore should be the only.
Yeah, I think it's not that he should be the only one, but he feels that he should have a special position.
He's the bestest.
Yes.
Love isn't like pie. Somebody should have told him that.
Eh? Sorry, that's just...
The idea, if something is like pie, if someone takes a piece, there's less to go around.
Oh, I see.
Love isn't like that.
It's an infinite pie. Infinite pie.
Okay, I can be happy with infinite pie. That's... What did the llama god make of this?
Well, I'm not going to beat around the bush with this one then. That was shite. What is the point even of this? Why does this even exist? I mean, I guess it's just to sell something, isn't it? Obviously, I mean, any art that's created art culture exists because there's some sort of money, because someone pays someone to create a piece of art, so there is no art without capitalism, at least in the world that we've created. Yeah, I know, sorry, you've been born into that world, little boy. The colonial fleet did not give us the best of themselves. Oh well, thanks, Leodama. But yeah, art always has a sponsor, so I guess that's why this exists, because our sponsor wanted to make some more money and they want to flog this dead horse. So yeah, the point of the plan, there's no plan. They wanted to show us the plan. The plan was that Cavill wanted the Final Five to pay and to learn something because he was pissed off, and we knew that. So what's the point of this? The point of this is to show us some flashbacks that we didn't need, and it's terrible. Dean Stockwell, bless him, tries his best, but even he can't make the material work. I'm really wondering how the hell they managed to draft in Eddie Olmos to actually direct this, because it is a stinking pile, and it's telling really that some of the actors, Starbuck, Apollo, Rosalind, don't come back except in flashback because, yeah, they just don't want to be associated with the project. So yeah, wow. The thing is, it's not even particularly well done. Yes, we never actually saw the fall of the colonies before, and now we see it, and yeah, did we need to? No, time has moved on, we've done this story, and it's not even done that particularly well. The way it's played through is, it feels like some sort of mid-game sequence. There's no tension to it because we know what's going to happen. We're just being shown a sequence of events as they happen, one after the other after the other. And really, when you're dealing with the fall of the human civilization, with the fall of the colonies, there should be tension to it, there should be drama, there should be pathos. It's just treated like the build-up to an action sequence, and that's just getting it all wrong. Yes, we do find out what Cavill was up to, what he was doing on the Battlestar for a couple of seasons, but did we need to find out really in detail? No, not really. It really takes a lot of the drama out of the scenes that we did see to actually be told what was behind the curtain. It's like, yeah, we could have guessed this ourselves. And if anything, it also devalues Lee Owen's character. I mean, he always seemed like a bit of a nutcase, but here we discover that he developed an obsession with Kara after hearing her on a makeshift radio. So, yeah, does that work? Not really. It was more interesting when you just thought he was an odd spiritual Cylon, and you were uncertain as where his obsession came from. So, yeah, this just devalues his character as well. So, well done. And there's way too many gratuitous naked scenes, and yeah, obviously that's just to go, hey, look, we're a mature show. Was this around the time that Game of Thrones was coming out? And yeah, it's like, look, we're adult, we're mature, we've got tits and ass. Yeah, no, that's the most immature thing you could have done. So yeah, I think Jo really summed it up. I mean, Jo didn't really watch the series with me, she caught some of the highlights, but she summed it up saying, this feels tired, and yeah, it does, it is utterly pointless. Possibly the biggest crime it commits, really, is the way that it uses Bear McCreary's usually brilliant music. It seems like they just pasted together things from his stock library to come up with a soundtrack that doesn't work. It's tedious, and it's Flashback City, which is everybody's favourite, isn't it? So yeah, wonderful. But on the subject of music, I'm going to use my remaining time to talk about something which I didn't cover in my rather lengthy feedback to Daybreak. Yeah, I haven't had time. Haha, who'd have thought? Yeah, you get some more of me here. And that is Bear McCreary's music. Now, I've been pondering why I didn't have quite the same negative reaction that you guys did. Since watching Daybreak, I've been listening through the Season 4 soundtrack on repeat, and really, I think the thing that really helped me appreciate Daybreak was Bear McCreary's music. I mean, I've loved his music throughout the series. It's weird, because initially when I started watching Galactica, I wanted something different. I was sort of wanting a bit more bombast, or orchestral-ish, you know, kind of like what either John Williams did for Star Wars, or what Sumner had done for Star Trek, or what Christopher Franke did for Babylon 5. I was after that. So the weird drum stuff that was set up in the pilot by a different composer, I forget who it was, really wasn't my thing. But along the way, McCreary has worked in other things. There's obviously the Final Five scene, but he's worked in a lot more interesting orchestrations, and his use of the drums is fantastic. I absolutely love what he does with the percussion. Yeah, I know, exactly, I think the same. It has really grown on me, and his soundtrack is something I really adore, and especially I think his soundtrack to Daybreak is particularly strong. I think the reason I didn't hate the flashback sequences to Caprica is that the soundtrack it gives them is a really eerie tune. It's actually very reminiscent of the soundtrack to Alien, and that gives those flashback sequences a feeling of being in the past and long. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm thinking about being in the past. There's some atrocious CGIing of Cavill into one of the flashback sequences to the pilot of Battlestar. Absolutely horrible. But yeah, it gives a sort of sense of feeling to the flashback sequences, which makes them feel slightly otherworldly, and I think that kind of worked for me anyway. And obviously his action sequence scoring music is wonderful. The way that he worked in the Final Five tune, his version of All Along the Watchtower into the ending. I mean, those moments when I'm listening to the soundtrack, I turn it up loud and I pound my keyboard, and yeah, I really love his work in it. And the impact he has on my enjoyment of the show cannot be underestimated. His music provides the emotion behind the final scenes we leave all the characters behind, and actually that piece of music that plays as we move into the future, that's really what gets me in that episode, because sometimes the series finishes and you're just left like it's the end of an episode. This one, as we zoom out, we get that music that is called The Passage of Time, and we see the flash forward into history. That really did feel like you're saying goodbye to the characters, and it made it feel final. And again, the fact we had that sense of finality in the final episode is what makes this prequel, filling in the gaps that didn't need to fill in, seem even more pointless. So yeah, so in summary, Bear McCreary good, the plan bad. Plan watch, don't watch the plan. There we go, that's where we are from here. So I'm interested to find out if anyone else enjoyed this. Scrapler clearly didn't. Don't worry, I did not allow him to watch it. I'm a responsible father. I mean, it's nothing to do with the content. It was just terrible. I'm letting him watch that. I hope everyone's great as the days are getting sunnier, if nothing else. And I look forward to feeding back on the final of the Battlestar things. I really wish we were doing Caprica. I know there's no spaceships, but I actually love that as a series. I look forward to feeding back on the very last thing, honest probably maybe next time on your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like things have moved on. I mean, all the flashback stuff is seasons 1 and 2, basically.
Yeah.
Well, that was a long while ago now.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that as summary. Music, good. The plan, bad.
Yep. And tensionless, that's another thing as well. Because you know how it's all turning out, because you've seen it. The only bit of tension really is about the boy, ultimately, and that's obviously a very small bit of it, so...
Yeah. And it doesn't end well.
Well, of course it doesn't. It's Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see what Drew and Tracy made of this.
So we just watched BSG, The Plan.
We did, yes.
And what do you think of that one then?
Okay, if you're going to cut to the chase, I thought it was very fragmented.
Yeah.
And I thought as a companion piece, it was good because we just obviously finished the whole series. It's good to watch it as that, but I think as a thing that stands on its own, yeah, not so great.
I think you're only saying that because we have watched BSG in its entirety. However, I did write down, if you didn't want to bother watching the whole seasons, you could literally have just watched The Plan and you would know
what you're saying.
exactly what was going on and you would know more.
Would you?
Yes, because in a lot of areas they explained stuff, like they explained the attack on New Caprica. Or Caprica, not New Caprica.
They did. But also, I mean, let me ask this question. What was the story that we just watched? What was the narrative? Yeah, exactly. It wasn't, was it? It wasn't like, you couldn't say, oh, this is what happened in it.
No, but you could.
Because it was just all over the place, wasn't it?
No,
It was good seeing, like, I agree with you, like, explaining between scenes and, like, almost the cracks in the story.
No, I disagree. I think if you watched this as a standalone, you would know that the Cylon colony attacked Caprica colonies.
Yep, all the 12 colonies.
Yeah, sorry. And this was the repercussions. So the Battlestar Galactica went to war with the Cylons. There was a lot in this that wasn't necessarily explained in the series.
I think if you watch this and you'd never watch any of the other stuff, you'd just be rubbish. You wouldn't like be interested in it myself. I think it was alright watching it, but I did feel a bit like this doesn't work great as a programme. Let's go back to the beginning though.
Yeah.
It's pretty much of a downer at the beginning, wasn't it?
Oh, there was so much blood and gore at the beginning. I was glad we weren't having our tea, to be fair, because I would have been like spewing everywhere.
Oh, and talking about having the tea as well, it was a bit like sexy times. This is a HBO special, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
I didn't mind them bits.
And it was funny how we saw like the old Cylon.
The helmets,
on the kids.
Yeah, we like that. Oh, well, them. Yeah.
And also how they all looked so young in the beginning.
I know.
The Chief looked really young. Adama had no grey hair.
No, I know, yeah.
That was really good.
That stuff was good.
I think this tied up quite a lot of loose ends.
Okay, yep.
For me, because there was a lot in this that you didn't obviously see in the episodes. So
yeah, I definitely think it's filling the cracks here.
Yeah, so there was, as I kind of say, so if you had never seen like seasons, you could kind of watch this and I think you would get quite a good gist.
I don't think you would. I disagree with that, I'm afraid.
Okay, alright, well, we'll have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Alright. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, see, I didn't. I sorry. I just found it a bit of a chore to watch, to be honest. I don't want to be too negative. I did enjoy the filling in of the stuff and all that lot, but I was just like, it's just going on forever.
See, I was quite different because I was like, oh, but that's why that happened, and I get that now. And
I do get that.
What? But that might come from me not having watched it 7 and 12 times like you big nerd.
I appreciated watching this. I definitely appreciated watching it, but I just found it a bit of a chore, and I would never ever watch this again. If we ever do another rewatch of it, I would be like, nah, I won't bother with that.
So we're going to do delete.
Maybe, yes. But yeah, no, it was okay, but not for me.
This was good. For me, it kind of answered a few questions that I already had. You were like, meh, seen it too many times.
No, I definitely say it filled in some cracks, but I just didn't feel that they needed filling.
Bum cracks.
Exactly.
Yeah, alright. Shall we leave it there?
Okay.
Alright, agree to disagree?
Yep.
Take it easy, guys. See you later. Bye.
Bye. Yes, some cracks are there. Ought to be left unfilled, definitely.
Unnecessary butt plug.
Yeah. I think it doesn't really work as a standalone. I mean, they did try to make it work like that, but if you don't know the significance of the final five, which you don't, this doesn't explain it, then really the whole Cavill thing, which is the only plot that's original to it, doesn't make any sense. So.
No.
But yes, there's several people saying it's like a HBO special, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just because, a few more topless people and a willy. Ooh.
It's one of those things, isn't it? People, when a franchise that's been successful ends, somebody somewhere doesn't want to let it go and produces something nobody needs.
Yeah, that's unfortunately
and it's
not
a thing.
Unknown,
and it's, it's not just a Hollywood thing. You get it in, K9 and Company.
You don't.
Do you know what I mean? It's it's not limited to Hollywood, is what I'm saying. It's, sometimes you're just better off letting things end.
Yes. Which has been unfortunate because we've still got another bit of Galactica to go. But anyway, we'll find out how that turns out next time.
Yeah, we don't know. Neither of us have seen it.
Yes.
Right. What did Purry make of this?
Hello, Orgs. Purry here to talk about Battlestar Galactica: The Plan. Now, this is actually my first time watching this. I've had the DVD for ages and never got round to it. I suppose the moment had passed when I finally actually picked it up. It's kind of a mixed bag, this one. I think I'm going to start off with the good stuff. So, for starters, choosing to centre a lot of it around Dean Stockwell is a good idea. His Cavill was a brilliant character, very much a boo-hiss baddie, and I liked the framing of it as the tale of two Cavills, and actually making a difference between the one that was on Caprica and the one that was with the fleet. And again, some of the story beats I liked. I liked following some of Boomer's story, although again, I'd have liked to have seen more, possibly even an implication. The thing is, the way this looks, it almost looks like she kind of joined everything just before it started, and I think I'd have liked a more of a flashback with Boomer to when she joined, and kind of almost how was she, instead, how long she'd been undercover. I mean, obviously long enough for everyone to get attached. I don't think we got a lot of that, but I liked the way things like Boomer's story tied in with things we've seen, and I liked kind of the theme of, particularly with Boomer and Simon's story, that some of them had fallen in love, and that there was kind of this resistance. Simon's story is actually quite good, with the possible downside that that you have, that it features a character who we never saw before or since, but apparently was always there. Which kind of gives you, that's always a weird thing in these kind of tie-ins. And I think maybe this was missold a little. Like I say, there were a few good things. I liked seeing the attack on the colonies in a bit more detail. I thought that was pretty dramatic. I liked seeing the base stars kind of doing the twisty thing. And there's a lot of stuff to like there, and a lot of stuff we didn't see before. The kind of downsides to this, I did kind of like the way it tied in, but it meant we ended up watching a lot of stuff we've seen before. As for the plan, again, it was kind of billed as this from the Cylons' point of view, and I suppose it was, but I mean, what you basically had was the Cavill who actually had been with Anders the whole time, which does sort of make sense. I was always wondering where he'd popped up from, so I suppose it answered, let's call that unanswered question 1 that was answered, was where the hell did he spring from? And he was actually there the whole time, as it turns out. And I did kind of like the way that kind of mellowed out. He sort of mellowed out in his discussion, and I think I'll get to the plan in a bit, but his discussions with Anders, how that changed his mind, whereas the one in the fleet didn't have that. It was very much realizing that they'd failed in wiping out all of humanity, and that they were now going to have to try and wipe them out in the fleet, with the Cylons that had made it, that escaped, basically. I mean, the one in the fleet, he had a big thing on, killing people, killing themselves. I know it was his way of trying to get a message back to Cylon HQ, is basically to kill one of the Cylons and have it report the fleet's position. But yeah, it was kind of that thing of even before that, when he said, "Oh, the nuclear war won't be a good thing. I'd probably poison yourself if I were you." Well, it was a bit harsh. So yeah, but then we did expect that from him. He was never the nicest person. And indeed, I think one of the things they kind of imply here is that the Hat Cavill was boxed because the other one didn't like him, proving that he probably had a lot of problems, and hence also why we probably didn't see too many Cavills after the occupation. I think he was potentially was he number one, and I think he definitely liked being number one. So yeah, bits that worked, like I say, those stories worked. I think I'd have liked to have seen more of that. I even quite liked seeing some of the Cylon plots hatching from behind the scenes, but I just don't. It all seems a bit unnecessary, I think, is my problem. I don't think this really added anything. It didn't give us some previously unseen reveals, aside from, like we say, where the Hat Cavill came from and what happened to the Six who was posing as the scientist who was going to expose Baltar. And indeed, I think part of it is when I know they showed the bits of the episodes to tie it in, but I don't think that sometimes you just felt like you were watching a clip show, or at least I did, and I think the plot was never really going anywhere. It was just kind of almost like, it's the sort of thing which actually works a lot better in tying comics, I find, because I think in this you're expecting it to go somewhere, you're expecting some revelations, and again you do get bits of that, you do get Simon's story and how that kind of tied in with Tyrrell, but I just don't think much of it really held together. And of course, the big reveal was meant to be from the name, the plan. What was the plan? Well, the plan, as it turns out, was kill everyone, which is unsurprising. I suppose the gist of it was this was to be the end of the exile of the final five, and that they were going to be resurrected and they'll all be really happy because wasn't humanity awful? We left you with them for ages, and yeah, you've learned your lesson now. And is the one on the ground who learns that actually they haven't, and they'll miss it, and they won't suddenly think we're right and come to love us again, with lots of reunions and that sort of thing, which is what they're wanting. But essentially, it meant that the whole destruction of the colonies was basically Cavill, and I'm going to put this entirely in Cavill, just looking for parental approval. So that was a thing. But yeah, it's not that it's not very good. It's perfectly adequate. But I just didn't find it particularly impressed me. So, yeah, that's the plan. I'm vaguely looking forward to Blood and Chrome, that I did see, but so all that remains for me to say is do keep up the good work, and I'll hopefully feed back on Blood and Chrome, which I've found a copy. But until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, it's a bit of a clip show, isn't it?
That sums it up nicely, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's answering questions that people weren't that bothered by in the first place. Pretty pointless, really.
Yes, but that's hopeful that he seems to have seen Blood and Chrome and seems to think it's better, so something to look forward to then.
We have some hope.
Yes, indeed.
There is hope in the universe.
Cool. Well, Blood and Chrome is what we're covering next in 2 weeks' time, recording on Thursday the 1st of April. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Bit of a fool then.
Yes.
We'll have to find out whether we are the fool. Will you pity the fool?
Will you pity the fool? We shall see. And then we're moving on to something very different.
Yes.
Very. Shall we break? Some people know already anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yes, we'll be moving back in a sense to Glen A. Larson time and covering the 2 seasons of Buck Rogers. Wow! So that will be. We'll get the
That'll
bends.
be a thing. It'll be a bit of a gear change,
to say the least. But there we are. Something else to look forward to.
But I'm looking forward to a gear change, and
Yes.
that's just the thing. You don't want to go from one thing. I mean, it was a bloody whiplash going from 1980 to this. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yes.
That was a bit too much of a change, possibly. But generally, it's quite nice if one thing comes to an end, if the next thing is different.
Different, exactly. So there we go. So be orcs.
So be orcs.
I guess I'll have to change my plan. I should have realized there'd be another man. I overlooked that point completely until the big affair began.
The music at the beginning of this podcast was arranged and performed by Drew Barker.
All other music is used for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
The artwork for Borgcast Galactica was created by Andy Palastides.
To contact us, send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Contact us via Twitter at rev_org or Borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
Visit our website at galactica.libsyn.com.
Or view images relating to our cast on our Tumblr site, borgcast.tumblr.com.
You can join our Facebook page. And there's also a Spotify playlist with all our play-out tunes on it.
Before I knew where I was at, I found myself hung up on a shelf, and that was that. I tried to reach for the moon, but you know when I got there, all that I could get was the air. Shut it down!
By your command.